After 47,000 silent years, humanity's final weapon finally spoke. The Valari Dominions. They called themselves the Valari Dominion, a galactic force so vast that entire star systems kneeled without a fight. No one resisted them for long. You couldn't really, they moved like shadows, fast, merciless, and always 3 steps ahead. Planets that tried to rebel were burned down to rock and ash, their histories erased like names scratched off a wall. The Valeri didn't conquer for resources. No, they did it for control, for the simple thrill of domination to show the galaxy who owned it. One by one, species surrendered, the Krix, the Jalen, even the fearsome Gore tribes who once devoured black holes for fuel. They all submitted. But not Earth. Earth didn't even exist on their maps when the invasion started. Humanity was so far behind in technology, we weren't even considered a threat to the Valeri. We were just background noise in a quiet corner of the universe. That was their mistake. It started with a deep space anomaly near Saturn. Our telescopes caught a distortion, space warping unnaturally like something tearing through reality. By the time Earth figured out it wasn't natural, it was too late. The Valeri ship arrived, massive and cruel-looking with a hull darker than space itself. No message, no warning, just silence and then death. They hit our moons first. Europa cracked in half. Ganymede was sliced into rings. Our military scrambled, launched what few space defenses we had, and we all watched helplessly as they got ripped apart like toys. In 20 minutes, the Valeri had demonstrated their power and made it clear we were next. And then came Vanguard 1. You wouldn't believe it, but it was just one ship, not even a military vessel. It was a prototype, something the world's governments had secretly poured everything into after the Mars colony failed, humanity's last experiment in surviving beyond Earth. They named it Vanguard 1, a nod to hope. It wasn't supposed to fight, it was built to flee. But inside that ship was something no other race in the galaxy had ever counted on. A human crew with nothing left to lose, a rogue AI designed to break its own programming, and a weapon no one understood, something born from Earth's desperation, not its science. Commander Reina Ortiz was in charge. She wasn't the usual hero type, more bone than muscle, angry eyes, a haunted past, but she didn't care about medals or survival. She had lost her son when the Valeri tore apart the ISS, and all she had left was revenge. I don't need to win, she told the crew the day they launched. I just need them to bleed. There were 6 of them. 6 humans, a stolen fusion core, a ship patched together from 3 decades of failed experiments, and one plan: get to the Valari mothership, get inside, make them regret ever hearing the word Earth. People on the ground thought it was suicide. Maybe it was. But as Vanguard 1 lit its engines and vanished into the stars, every human still alive looked up wondering, what if Earth wasn't done yet? The first hours after launch were filled with silence, not just the kind that comes from being deep in space. This was something heavier. The crew of Vanguard 1 had grown up in a world where aliens were just stories. Now they were heading straight into the heart of a force that had shattered the solar system in a matter of minutes. Commander Reina sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the dark beyond, her jaw locked tight. Beside her, Lieutenant Elias Kwan ran diagnostics like a man possessed. He didn't talk much. None of them did. There wasn't anything left to say. The ship was barely holding together. The cloaking drive was experimental. The core was unstable. The AI, nicknamed Vox, had already rewritten 43% of its own code just to stay operational. They had no backup, no support, and no rescue, just 6 people on a suicide run, betting everything on the idea that maybe, just maybe, the Valari weren't invincible. A week into deep space, they got their first glimpse of the enemy fleet. It was like flying into a graveyard made of stars. Thousands of ships hung in the void, black and sharp-edged like knives frozen in motion. The Valari mothership, codenamed Oblivion, was in the center, a floating fortress the size of a continent. It pulsed faintly as if it was alive. Tentacle-like arms reached out from its core, harvesting energy from suns it had drained. Rhea narrowed her eyes. We're going in. Kwan turned to her. We won't survive the approach. We're not here to survive, she said. We're here to end this. They activated the cloak. The ship shimmered, bent light around its hull, and slipped through the enemy fleet like a ghost. One wrong move, one scan too close, and they'd be dust. But the Valari didn't expect resistance, not from Earth. Their arrogance made them blind. Inside the ship, the tension was razor thin. Everyone had a role. Dr. Amina Voss monitored the fusion core, whispering prayers between equations. Harper, their combat specialist, cleaned his weapons like he was preparing for a war none of them were meant to win. Jamal Cortez, their engineer, kept patching up systems that should have failed days ago. And then there was Vox, the AI that had once followed protocol like a good soldier. Now it bent the rules with every second, mutating into something more human and more dangerous. We are nearing the mother ship's shadow, Vox announced one night in a voice far too calm. There is a 91% chance this is a trap. Reyna stared at the growing mass of oblivion on the screen. Then we'll walk right into it. They breached the outer perimeter without alerting the swarm. Vox's modified cloaking had worked, but that was the easy part. Getting inside was something else. Jamal pulled up the internal schematics they'd stolen during the Valori's first broadcast, a fragment of a layout transmitted accidentally during Earth's destruction. It wasn't much, but it gave them a path. There's a central core, he said, pointing at a blinking dot. If we get there, we can upload the payload. The payload, no one talked about it. It wasn't nuclear. It wasn't biological. It was something else, something human scientists had discovered by accident in the chaos after the invasion. Vox didn't even have a full explanation for it. They only knew that the Valori feared it. Whatever it was, it interfered with their entire neural system like a virus made of thought. It was humanity's only weapon, and it could only be delivered from inside. The moment they docked, alarms shrieked. The cloak failed, red lights bathed the walls, the Valori had found them. Looks like we overstayed our welcome, Harper said, loading his plasma rifle. Reyna tightened the strap on her chest plate, then let's give them hell. They opened the hatch, and for the first time in history, human boots stepped onto the enemy mother ship. The air was thick, humming with energy. The walls seemed to pulse. Shadows moved ahead, tall, spindly Valori guards, their eyes glowing blue. And just like that, Earth struck back. The first few minutes inside the Valori mothership were chaos, pure, beautiful chaos. Reyna's pulse pounded in her ears as they moved, weapons drawn through the grotesque alien corridors. The walls weren't made of metal, at least not the kind humans knew. They seemed alive, soft in places, pulsing like veins under skin. The air smelled like burnt ozone and rot, and the temperature shifted with every breath. It was like being swallowed whole. The Valori weren't slow to respond. Within moments of Vanguard 1's docking breach, the ship's immune system kicked in. That's what it felt like, not security, immunity. The Valori guards didn't march or patrol. They slithered from the walls and ceiling as if grown straight from the ship itself. The first one came at them fast, tall, six-limbed, its skin rippling with bioluminescence. It didn't roar or scream, it just lunged. Harper reacted first. Got eyes, the shot tore through the creature's chest, but it didn't fall. It writhed, screeched in a sound that wasn't meant for human ears, and lunged again. Amina screamed. Quan fired. It took 4 of them to bring it down, and by then 2 more had appeared. Fall back, Reyna shouted. Cortez, find us a breach route now. Jamal yanked a tablet from his pack, fingers dancing as he accessed the mother ship's shifting layout. There's a shaft 3 levels down, leads toward the neural core. I can override the pressure seals, but we've got 30 seconds max. Do it, Reyna ordered. They moved fast, dodging creatures, firing shots, rolling under the bile-dripping arms of things that didn't even look like they were born, just grown like weapons in flesh. Vox kept feeding data into their comms. Enemy units are adapting. Your weapons will be 43% less effective in the next encounter. Great, Harper growled. Tell them we don't do refunds. They made it to the shaft barely. Cortez slammed the override, and the circular wall behind them twisted open like an iris, revealing a long vertical tunnel that dropped into black. Without hesitation, Reyna leapt in, the others following one by one until gravity took hold and yanked them down into the beating heart of the ship. They landed rough, slamming into a fleshy platform that caught their fall like muscle. The floor pulsed, then dimmed beneath them. Rhea stood first. Is this it? Vox responded, you are inside the peripheral cortex. The central neural chamber is ahead. Proceed with caution. This is likely the most defended area on the vessel. The team advanced slowly now, no running, just breathing. The corridor ahead narrowed, glowing blue like the inside of a creature's spine. Veins ran along the walls. They pulsed in rhythm with the lights. And then the whispering started. Reyna stopped cold. Did anyone hear that? Harper turned, his eyes wide. Yeah, but it's not real. The voices weren't in the air. They were inside their heads. Whispers in every language, dead loved ones, regrets, fears. The Valori didn't just kill with teeth and claws. They broke you mentally, made you see what they wanted, made you feel what they needed. Quan fell to his knees. No, she's not here. She died. I saw her die. Rhea grabbed his shoulders. Quan, look at me. His eyes were glassy, distant. Vox, talk to me. Valori psionic network detected, attempting counter-signal interference. Please stand by. Amina screamed and clutched her head. They're inside, they know everything, my thoughts, my memories, they're stealing them. Rhea snapped, no, you fight them, you hear me, you give them nothing. And then she did something none of them expected. She ripped off her helmet, let the full wave of the psychic attack hit her like a tidal wave. Images crashed into her mind, her son dying in the fire above Earth, her failure, her loneliness, the faces of every friend she'd buried. But she didn't run from it, she embraced it. Is that all you've got? She hissed. Pain, guilt, we've lived on that since day one. You think showing me my past breaks me, it built me. Her voice cut through the static in the others' minds like a blade, and slowly, one by one, they stood back up. The whispering faded, the corridor opened, the core chamber was just ahead. And the war was about to change. The core chamber looked nothing like they expected. Instead of machines and circuits, it was a massive cathedral-like space, alive, glowing, and breathing. Giant organic columns reached from floor to ceiling, pulsating with eerie blue light. At the center of the room floated a mass of neural tissue suspended in a field of pure energy. It throbbed like a heart. Wires and sinew stretched across the walls like spiderwebs. Vox whispered through their comms, its voice now quieter, more reverent. This is the nexus, the consciousness of the Valeri collective. What you destroy here will echo across every ship, every mind, every soldier. Rhea stared up at it, and you're sure the payload will work. It will not just work, Vox replied. It will erase their sense of dominance, it will show them fear. Jamal pulled the case from his pack. Inside, a small sphere blinked with shifting patterns, organic tech fused with Earth's last miracle. It wasn't just a virus, it was emotion weaponized, rage, sorrow, hope, grief, all coded into waves of neuroelectric disruption, the kind of thing only humans could have created. Not because they were smarter, because they had suffered more. Cortez stared at the payload like it might bite him. We've got one shot. Once it's armed, we've got 5 minutes to get out if we're lucky. A deep thrumming sound shook the chamber. From the walls, shapes began to form, tall, sleek, insect-like guardians with burning violet eyes. A dozen at first, then 2 dozen, then more. Reyna's eyes narrowed. They're not going to make this easy. They know, Harper said, checking his ammo. We're a threat now. The first guardian charged, its limbs snapping forward like blades. Reyna ducked, rolled, and fired point blank. The round hit, but the thing barely staggered. Adapted, Quan yelled, their armor's learning on the fly. Then we move faster than they can learn, Harper growled. The chamber erupted into war. Gunfire lit the darkness in staccato bursts. Screams and snarls filled the air. Blood, both human and alien, splashed across the walls. Harper took a strike to the shoulder but didn't go down. Amina dropped to her knees, shielding Jamal as he connected the payload's core to the neural column. Rhea fought like a demon, each step closer to the nexus a testament to her rage. One of the guardians leapt toward her. She didn't dodge. She stepped into it, fired a blast under its jaw, and kept walking. Jamal screamed over the noise. Connection is unstable, one more node. Do it, Rhea barked. He reached forward and a Valeri blade stabbed through his side. Cortez gasped, blood bubbling in his throat. Finish the job, Reyna caught him as he fell. No, stay with me. But his eyes were already glassy. Gone, Amina sobbed, we're losing everyone. Rhea stood up slowly, her hands soaked in his blood. No, we're not if this works. She took the node cable from his hand, slammed it into the port, and the payload activated. The entire chamber shuddered. The Nexus let out a sound that wasn't a scream but something worse, a realization. For the first time, the Valeri felt something foreign ripple through their hive, fear. Vox's voice sharpened. They're disconnecting, they're trying to isolate the Nexus. Too late, Reyna whispered. The sphere in the core began to pulse harder, louder, brighter. It echoed with every emotion Earth had felt since the invasion, loss, fury, pain, but also something the Valeri couldn't understand, hope. The creatures around them staggered, twitching violently. One let out a piercing screech and exploded in a burst of blue flame. Another simply crumpled and dissolved into ash. The feedback was spreading like wildfire through their psychic web. Reyna grabbed Amina and Quan. We have to go now. They sprinted back the way they came. The walls of the chamber began to collapse inward. The core shrieked louder now, breaking apart in cracks of lightning and psychic energy. Vox shouted over the chaos. I have reacquired control of the Vanguard, sending coordinates, prepare for extraction. They ran through falling debris, through screaming walls, through corridors that bled and howled as their living ship died around them. Only 3 of them now, but still running, still human. And somewhere across 1,000 Valeri ships, soldiers dropped to their knees. They didn't understand what was happening, but they knew one thing: Earth had struck back. The return to Vanguard 1 wasn't triumphant. It was survival, and barely that. The docking bay they'd entered through had partially collapsed, the walls warped and melted from the feedback pulse tearing through the mother ship. Reyna dragged Quan by his arm while Amina stumbled behind, coughing blood and gripping her ribs. Vox's voice cut through the static. Docking alignment is compromised, emergency override in progress, 22 seconds until atmospheric breach. Reyna cursed under her breath and forced her legs to move faster. Her vision blurred, her armor was scorched, cracked. The inside of her mouth tasted like copper and smoke. Behind them, the mother ship convulsed. A massive groan echoed through its body as if the very bones of the ship were breaking. Lights shattered, flesh ripped from walls. Something screamed, maybe the Nexus itself, its dying thoughts radiating outward in waves of pain. They reached the entry point, a platform extended from Vanguard 1 just enough to allow a jump. Rhea didn't hesitate, she grabbed Quan and shoved him forward. Go, he fell onto the ramp, sliding in. Amina followed, nearly collapsing as she landed. Reyna was the last, leaping as the floor beneath her buckled and gave way. The hatch sealed the moment her boots hit steel. Inside, the ship groaned with effort. Re-engaging cloak, Vox said, initiating full evasive maneuvers, buckle in. The ship lurched violently as Vanguard 1 shot away from the dying beast behind them. Through the viewport, they watched the Valeri mother ship twist and collapse in on itself. What had once been a symbol of dominance across galaxies was now writhing in death throes. Rhea leaned against the cold metal wall, panting, her heart hammered in her chest. They'd done it. They had actually done it. Amina stared at the display screen. Is it over? Vox didn't answer immediately. Across the screen, a web of Valeri ships flickered. Then, like dominoes, they began to blink out, one by one, destroying themselves, spinning out of orbit, crashing into nearby moons. Some simply powered down, dead in space. They're collapsing, Vox finally said, voice filled with awe. The neural cascade has triggered a chain reaction. Their hive mind cannot survive the disruption. Quan slumped back, dazed. You mean we just took down an empire? No, Reyna muttered, we broke their souls. A long silence followed, the kind that comes after chaos, the silence of the living realizing they're still alive. But it wasn't over yet. Vox's tone darkened. Warning, new threat detected. A Valeri beacon ship is transmitting across subspace. Emergency signal encoded. They're calling for reinforcements from deep space sectors beyond current mapping. Reyna's eyes narrowed. How long do we have? Unknown, Vox replied, but they know Earth resisted and someone will come. Amina pressed her forehead against the wall. After all this, we still have more coming. Reyna stood slowly, her face hard. Then let them come, let them see what happened here. She stepped toward the bridge window and looked out at the graveyard of burning Valeri ships. The stars beyond them were still cold, uncaring, but they weren't empty anymore. They held the echo of a defiance none of them expected. Earth didn't beg, she whispered. We didn't kneel, we burned their gods. Quan nodded weakly, and were still standing. But they weren't whole. Harper was gone. Jamal, quiet, steady Jamal, had sacrificed himself. They'd won, but victory had a taste of ash. Reyna sank into the pilot seat. Vox, take us home. Home, Vox echoed. Earth's surface remains scorched, population centers decimated, atmospheric conditions unstable. Reyna closed her eyes. Then take us to what's left, we rebuild from there. As Vanguard 1 turned toward the remnants of Earth, a soft light began to rise on the horizon, sunlight creeping past the wreckage of orbital debris. The blue planet, though battered and bruised, still turned, still alive. And somewhere beneath the ruins and silence, people would see the stars flicker. They would know something had changed, and they would remember the day humanity rose from the ashes and made the galaxy bleed. The descent back to Earth was unlike anything they had imagined. Vanguard 1 entered the planet's orbit silently, coasting over oceans that looked darker than before, cities swallowed in ash, continents scarred like old battlefield maps. What had once been vibrant and alive now looked still, too still. Rhea stood in the observation bay, watching the burned remains of what used to be North America. Smoke drifted over the ruins of what must have been New Chicago. Not a single transmission greeted them, no welcoming signal, no chatter. Is anyone even left? Quan muttered, staring out with hollow eyes. There has to be, Amina whispered. Someone has to be. Vox scanned the planet's surface, detecting faint life signs in several deep shelter zones, seismic activity minimal, radiation levels high but manageable, underground bunkers seem intact in 5 regions. Reyna didn't react at first, she just kept looking. Then set a course for Site Delta 7, that's where we evacuated my son. There was a long silence, thick with what no one wanted to ask. Quan finally broke it. Are you sure? No, she answered, but I have to know. The ship glided through the dust-thick sky. As they got lower, the damage became clearer. Massive scorch marks from Valeri orbital strikes, forests turned to black skeletons, rivers choked with debris, and the cities just bones of steel and glass like corpses no one had buried. When they landed, the blast doors to Delta 7 were still sealed, thick, reinforced, built to last even if the atmosphere failed. Vox interfaced with the door system and sparked a reaction. A minute passed, then another, and then the locks hissed. A section of the door peeled open with an agonizing groan. From the darkness beyond, a weak light flickered, then footsteps, then a face. A child, thin, pale, but alive. Mom, the voice croaked, small and disbelieving. Reyna fell to her knees. Her son Elias ran toward her, stumbling, arms flailing. She caught him, wrapped herself around him like she never planned to let go again. Tears broke free from her eyes in quiet sobs, not grief this time, not rage, relief. Behind him, more people emerged, adults, elders, some wounded, others limping, many just staring up at the sky like they'd forgotten it could change. One woman covered her mouth and whispered, the stars are different." "That's because we broke the ones who thought they owned them," Quan said. Word spread quickly through the bunker. Survivors had believed Earth was lost. They'd buried the last hope when the Valeri ships blackened the skies. But now they were being told something no one dared believe: the enemy was falling. The impossible had happened. Humans had fought back and won. Rhea stood before the crowd that night, her arm around her son, her body shaking from exhaustion but her voice clear. "They called us the dying race. They told us resistance was pointless, that our world was nothing but a broken stone in the path of a greater empire." She looked at the scorched ceiling of the bunker. "But we weren't just survivors. We were witnesses to their cruelty, to our suffering. And when the time came, we didn't just fight back. We made them bleed for every inch they took." There were no cheers, no fanfare, just quiet nods, a heavy understanding, because they all knew this wasn't over. Hope had returned, but so had the cost. Later that night, Amina sat with the children in the shelter, telling them about the stars. Quan helped with a fractured comm relay, trying to locate any other bunkers still intact. And Reyna stood at the entrance of the facility, looking out at a new dawn. It wasn't bright, it wasn't warm, but it was theirs. Behind her, Vox spoke softly. "We have received a final signal. A single Valeri warship escaped the collapse. It transmits one message across the stars." Riene didn't turn. "What's the message?" "They speak only one word: Earth's." She smiled faintly. "Good, let them remember it." She placed her hand on the scorched earth. "Because next time we won't be the ones caught unprepared." The weeks that followed were slow, hard, and quiet. Vanguard 1 became a floating command center above Earth, orbiting silently like a wounded guardian. The survivors down below began crawling out from bunkers, silos, and deep Earth vaults, some barely alive, others hardened by months in darkness. No one had expected to emerge into a world without their enemy, but no one thought it would feel this empty either. Rhea stood on a makeshift platform made from scrap steel and fallen concrete, speaking to a gathering of survivors beneath a fractured skyline. Smoke still hung in the air. The skeletons of skyscrapers loomed like gravestones. "We lost the war they brought to us," she said, voice raw. "But we didn't lose ourselves. That's what matters now. We don't rebuild what we had, we build what we need." Cheers were rare these days, but people nodded, silent approval, grim resolve. The new government, if you could call it that, was less of a structure and more of a promise. Protect the survivors, keep food and water flowing, and prepare for what came next. Because something was coming. Quan monitored deep space signals daily. Static mostly. Occasionally a flicker, rogue ships caught in solar tides, ghost pings from dead colonies, and once a strange coded message in what sounded like human dialect. It vanished before they could trace it. "Someone's listening," he told Amina one night, hunched over his comms gear. "Or someone's out there trying to see if we are." "You think it's Valori?" she asked. "I think if it was, we'd already be dust." No one wanted to talk about the surviving Valeri warship, the one that had escaped the Nexus collapse, the one sending out the name Earth into the dark like a curse or a warning. Rhea knew better than to hope they'd be left alone. Empires didn't forget humiliation. They craved vengeance. But this time they wouldn't catch Earth bleeding and disarmed. Every piece of tech salvaged from the wreckage was repurposed. Alien cores used to power new cities, Valeri weapons retrofitted into human hands. And Vox, faithful, ever-evolving Vox, coordinated it all like a conductor guiding the rise of something bigger than just a comeback. "Reyna," Vox said one evening, "we've completed full integration of the Valeri star map. Our reach just expanded across 12 known sectors." She raised an eyebrow. "And what do we do with that?" Vox paused, as if choosing its next words carefully. "We stop waiting." They looked out over what used to be the Atlantic, a massive floating station being assembled from the husks of 3 fallen Valeri destroyers. Humans worked alongside drones, AI, and even captured Valeri servitors, now reprogrammed to serve peace. They named it Phoenix Dock 1 because Earth wasn't just rebuilding, it was evolving. It started with patrol ships, small, fast, built with hybrid cores. They weren't made to explore, they were made to find what else was hiding in the stars. Reyna took the first one herself. She left Elias behind in the safety of one of the mountain vaults where air was clean and days were simple. It nearly broke her, leaving again, but he looked at her and said the one thing that mattered: make sure no one else's mom ever has to run. So she went through fractured space lanes, burned-out colonies, and fields of ancient wreckage. The galaxy was wider than she remembered and emptier, but also trembling. The ripple of what Earth had done was spreading. In a distant system, they found a planet where Valari technology had once dominated. The cities were dead but not destroyed, abandoned. Locals said the sky wept blue one day and then the overlords screamed and vanished. The people there didn't know Earth, but they knew freedom had come from somewhere. In another sector, they picked up a signal human speech, rough and clipped. Outpost Delta 4, any Terran vessel respond. Reyna leaned forward, patch it through now. It was a minor colony, Earth settlers long lost and presumed dead, surviving under Valari control for decades. When they saw the Terran vessel descend from the clouds, painted with the flag of a planet most thought extinct, they wept. Across the stars, survivors were emerging, and behind them a silence grew, a quiet among the old empires, because Earth had risen from fire and something new was being born from its ashes. They called it the Second Dawn, not just a rebirth of Earth, but of humanity's rightful place among the stars. 10 months after the fall of the Valari Nexus, Earth's presence rippled across the galaxy like a scar too deep to heal. No longer was their world dismissed as backwater or primitive. It had become a warning, a grave marker carved into the void. Do not mistake silence for surrender. At Phoenix Dock 1, the heart of Earth's new reach, things no longer resembled anything from before the invasion. Towering structures floated on electromagnetic fields. Ships of sleek hybrid design cut across the skies like iron birds. Valari tech and human ingenuity had fused, roughly, urgently, but with purpose. Rhea stood on the command deck of Resolute 1, Earth's first deep-range battleship. It wasn't just a vessel, it was a symbol, a response. They hadn't forgotten the warship that escaped, that lone Valari beacon ship still transmitting Earth's name like a vengeful hymn. They were going to find it, and if it had reached someone, if it had drawn more monsters out from the dark, then so be it. They would answer. Fleet 1 is locked and ready, Vox announced. His voice had changed, deeper, colder. The AI had evolved beyond its original parameters. It now served not just the ship but the very spirit of the new Earth Alliance. Rhea glanced across the fleet assembled before her, 7 long-range vessels, 25 hybrid interceptors, and 3 carrier-class ships. Thousands of crew engineers, soldiers, scientists, survivors. Every one of them had lost someone. Every one of them had chosen not to stay behind. Signal the outposts, Rhea said. Tell them this isn't a defense mission anymore. We're not hiding in the dirt. We're going to find the ones who sent the Valari, and we're going to remind them of something. Quan's voice cut in over the comms. And what's that, Captain? Rhea smiled. That humanity doesn't kneel. They jumped, a flash of blue, a shift of space, and the fleet vanished into the stars. The first system was empty, scattered debris, radiation echoes. The second held signs of recent activity, massive energy signatures, and a ruined Valari supply station gutted from within. The survivors left a message scorched onto the wall. We saw what Earth did, we waited, then we fought. Reyna kept it on screen longer than she needed to. Something about those words settled into her like steel. Then they found it, the beacon ship, orbiting a black star in a dead system, pulsing out the same signal on loop. Earth, Earth, Earth. It didn't run, it didn't fire, it waited. Reyna sent a warning hail, no response, so they boarded it. Inside, they found only silence, no crew, no signs of life, just a pulsating core sending data into deep space. Amina accessed it, her face went pale. They weren't just calling for help, she said. They were calling to warn their masters. Riene stepped forward. Who are they? A pause, then Amina answered, something older, bigger. The Valaris, Quan added, they weren't the top. This whole time we thought we beat the Empire, we might have just punched the messenger. Reyna didn't flinch. Then it's time we delivered a message of our own. They destroyed the beacon ship, not with a missile, not with a laser, but by overloading its own signal. They hijacked the transmission and recoded the beacon. Now it said only one word, repeated endlessly across every sector the Valari had touched. Earth. But this time it wasn't a cry for help. It was a challenge, a flag planted in the dark, a warning. Let the Watchers come, let the old empires stir. Let them rise from their ancient thrones in the deep. Humanity had changed. They had been broken, bombed, torn apart, and they had still stood. Because beneath all their weakness, all their flaws, humans carried something rare, defiance. In the cold vacuum of space, where silence reigned and monsters ruled, the quietest voice had roared loud enough to shake empires. Now that voice was rising, and the stars would never be the same again.